Hello everyone. I was videotaping this during the when I used color pencils for coloring in the green leaves. Basically, I'm using coloring pencils for this demo, and I colored in the green leaves just like I would painting them. I had a light color side and a dark colored side. And you can kind of tell with how I'm coloring in the bow here. I press harder and I get a darker color. And when I paint over it with watercolor, you'll see how that really changes the look of things. And the watercolor pencils here are they're kind of hard to get out of the container. Anyway, what I'm doing is picking a darker version of the color that I previously had, or in this case, it's a little bit more purple than the original red. And here I'm going over the entire flower with a really light version of this color. And it's just with a real light touch. I'm then going to go back in and darken areas like the where the flower would tuck in behind each petal, so that would be the inside line. And that's just pressing harder with the pencil, so you get a darker color when you paint it. It actually shows up darker on the flower also. It's amazing how these color pencils pop once you put water on them. So I'm going to use a smaller size brush to put the water on this flower. I'm going to start with the flower, and I try to do the lighter areas. I've got a hair on the brush, sorry. I try to do the lighter areas first and then go into the dark. See, I'll start with the lighter area, then come into the dark. It just makes a smoother gradation. And with the bigger petals, I'll actually rinse the brush off between, but this I'm just trying to get a nice little darker area in the center of the flower. So I'm starting on the outside of the petal, I'm working on the inside of the petal. And I am kind of jumping. You don't really have to worry about watercolor pencil running as much as regular paint because it tends to stay in the area that it is. See how the color really, it just brightens up once that watercolor is added. It just pops off the page. It's a really cool thing about the pencils. You seem to have a little bit more control over watercolor when you're using pencils like that. Now I'm letting some of the petals of the rose dry, and I'm going to go ahead and paint in the heart. And see, I started with the lighter color middle of the heart, and I'm going to the outside, and now I'm going to try to make them, I rinsed my brush and I'm trying to make them, the gradation transition a little better than it did. So again, starting with the lighter side, working to the darker side. Lighter to darker again. See how that color pops? It's pretty amazing. I love watercolor pencils because they're more controllable probably. So here you'll notice that I go in with a darker color of watercolor pencil. And you can do this with color pencil if you let the paper dry beforehand. And I just don't, I want that rose to be a little darker, so I went over the petals that needed to be darkened. And here I am going over the top of a rose just lightly with that same color. And I'm going to change, actually, I'm going to do this a little differently here. I'm going to go back in and dark paint those second layers I put on that rose. Um, and I'm going to try a little different technique with this rose because I want to have a brighter look to it. So I'm basing in the color and then I'll go back with watercolor pencil to darken it. I'm also using the watercolor pencil as actual paint here. As you notice, I use the brush to wet the tip of the pencil and then go back in and drop color in the dark areas of the rose. There's more than one way to use um, color pencils. I'm going to show you a little later that you can actually dip the pencil in water and then draw with it, which creates a really dark line. So I'm continuing with the brushing of the tip to get that bright purple color. This particular color just works. I think what happened is I like the intensity of that color, and you can't really get it unless you color extremely hard with that color pencil. So I just decided that it'd be easier to paint with the tip of the. Now I'm just using kind of the color, a really light watercolor that I had on my brush. Okay, I noticed that some of the leaves were, they had little a discrepancy in color there, so I went back over it. So you can go back over items and kind of smooth them out. So I'm going to color in a heart, and I'm doing a dark side and a light side. It just adds dimension to the image if you give it a dark side and a light side. You don't always have to do it, but when you're working with something that's going to have one color like a heart, it makes it look good. So here I'm dipping the color, and I'm going to go right in the around the flower, and you notice how bright it is. So you just dip it in, and then you use it as maybe you would a marker because it's real bright and bold. It doesn't require much, and you kind of shake off the pencil a little bit when you put it to the page. But see how bright that is? Just another way to use your color pencil. And I'm going to go back in and go over that color, and you see it's lighter than when you're doing that direct pencil. You're going to get the boldest, brightest color possible. Just remember that. You're not going to get light variations of that color. And that heart was also done with that same color, and look at the variations of the red that you get there. You get a nice pink and then I'm just adding to another heart that I didn't think had enough dimension to it. So here you notice that I've used another color of color pencil over the top of that initial rose color. I'm, with anything, if you want a lot of an interest that you add color over the top. So it adds texture, it adds color as long as one is red and one is purple. But when you put the red over the purple, you get like a pinker tone, and it just adds some interest to the flower. Now here you're going to notice that I'm lifting color off of the petals, and I'm doing this before the rose dried, and I'm rinsing my brush, and then I'm drying the brush off and then lifting color off the edge so it adds a little bit of highlight to that petal. So here I'm going to show you a new product, and you don't have to use this if you don't want to, but they're Fine Tech metallic watercolors out of Germany. And this particular set of 6 cost about $16. I can tell you they last a very long time, and they're really, really metallic. They're some of the most metallic watercolors that I've come across. If you layer them over top of a dark yellow, the gold really pops off the page, and they look really good on dark colors. So I'm not using them in their best environment here, but I really like them and wanted you guys to see them. So I'm including them into this video. I just found these a couple months ago, but oh, I love them. So I'm having fun using them as part of the writing elements here. And you can't really see how metallic they are in this video, but they're pretty amazing. Just so you know that when you use them, you should put drops of water on the watercolor palette before, probably maybe 2 or 3 minutes before you use them, because I didn't give them enough time to really soak in. They need that extra time for some reason. I think it's because they're metallic. And they're a little bit transparent, so if you want a great effect with them, put them over top of a yellow, or right here I'm putting them on top of red, and I'm putting them on top of this bunch of leaves, and you can't really tell, but it added a lot of shimmer to the leaves, and I'm not really dipping back into the palette until now, so it was pretty amazing how far that color went. Okay, now I'm going to add details with the glitter. Like before, I'm just going to do accents on the flowers and then along the leaves. It's all up to your preference, what you like. I'm going to stay on the same side as the metallic here. I'm just adding a tiny bit more of a shimmer to it. I'm not going over the entire leaf, just like the edge of the leaf. So I've almost finished adding the clear glitter, and I'm gonna go ahead and put some gold on just in a couple different areas. So here oh, I wanted you to look at see how shiny that lettering is? It's pretty amazing. So Fine Tech from Germany, the watercolors. And now I'm just going to add glitter gold highlights. So after you add the glitter gold highlights, you're going to cut out your images. And I actually cut off a leaf here, but I would wait till it's totally dry before you do that. I'm going to go ahead and just cut off an end leaf. I'm just trying to show you that it's time to cut everything out. After it dries, though. So I am going to be working with pre um, pre-printed or pre-cut out cards, and all you're going to do is cut two little slots in the card. And once that's cut, you're going to bend it. I kind of bent it crooked there, but you're going to bend it up, and that will be the base for your pop out to come out. And you can do it one of two ways. You can just use one card, like I am here, briefly, and glue everything on the inside of that card, or you can decide to, if you want two colors, like a color on the inside, a color on the outside. And what you do is just reverse the card. I forgot to reverse the card there, but I'm going to do it now so you'll understand what I mean. So that would be purple on the outside or a pattern on the outside, and then you would have your pop out on the inside. So there, the pop out's on the inside, and you'll glue those two cards together. See how that, it looks a little bit more classy when it has two colors. So I was just, okay, so I have all the ingredients that you're going to need to make your pop-up card, and I've made these zigzag paper tabs. You can just use pop-up. So what I do is I take a zigzag, I use a scrap of the watercolor paper and I make a little Z with it, zigzag. Use scissors, don't try to cut it with your hands like I just did there. Brilliant move. So it looks like a little Z backwards. No, I guess it's a Z anyway. Anyway, and you glue stick it to the image, the little pop out, and then you glue stick it to the image you want it to pop out from. See how you push it down and it pops back up? So that's just if you don't have those little foam pop outs, sticker things that you can use with scrapbooking and things, you can just use this technique. So it's just a little zig of paper, a Z of paper. They're kind of funky to put on there, but see how it just adds a little dimension to it? It's kind of fun. So I did that too. I did a V pop out if I didn't want it to stick out that much. So with the leaves, I did a V, and with the flowers, I did a Z. So it's just a really small strip of paper in a V or a Z on the side. So you would, in a perfect world, let that dry before you go and try to finagle it onto the card, but I'm going to try to glue it on the card right away, which is probably a big mistake, but I have no patience. So I just kind of go with the flow. But please let it dry before you try this. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is place it on the card, and this technique did not work. I'm just going to tell you right away. So this is what not to do, is just glue it on that little tab and then try to close it. Doesn't work. So what I found out is if you pop that out and put the glue on it and then push it onto the image, it works so much better. See? Yay! So it'll pop off the card like that, and you could add a message maybe above your image there. Oh, I'm going to add a little banner to the bottom. It's just, there you go. So you're done with your first little card. That was the top image, and I'm going to make the bottom rose card too. So when it closes, oh, you can also add something to the cover if you want. I had leftovers from the top bouquet, and so I'm just going to add that to the front of the card. And as you'll notice, I did add a pattern on the cover just to add some interest. When you open it, then you'll have the plain card with all the flowers, but on the front here, I thought it'd be nice to have a little bit of a pattern. So I'm just laying down the ribbon and a couple flowers, and then it'll be done. So after adding the flowers, you could always write in the person's name that you're giving it to on the banner or some other little cute message. And also you'll probably want to add the gems before you glue this stuff on, all the flowers and stuff on. I forgot to add the gems. And here I am going to start the inside of the next card, which will be the rose bouquet. And I don't have everything cut out for this one, but I'm going to use that little love banner. And I was deciding whether I wanted to use the bow or the love banner. You can use what you want. I mean, arrange it how you will. But this one I hadn't had it arranged beforehand, so I'm kind of working with arrangement. You could use 2 roses. You could use just the 1 rose and the banner if you wanted. It's up to you. I'm going to use the 3 roses, and I'm going to add a couple extra little leaves to that image. I'm making my little Z's right now so that I can pop them off and adding them to the flowers. If you have the foam dots, it's probably much simpler. It's just that I had a bunch of extra little bits of paper laying around from the watercolor, and if I would have went through my stash, I could have found the foam dots, but here they're a little tricky to use. They with the glue sticks, so let them dry, put them on there and let them dry. As you'll see there, that one just kind of, I was playing with it, and the little Z just slipped right out. So So I love the little bouquet. I think it's looking a lot of like a lot of fun, and I want to add the heart and the banner. I'm trying to decide which heart I'm going to use. I think I'm going to use the darker colored one just because it's a different color from the roses. So I'm going to cut that out. I wasn't going to use it at all, but I decided to use it. So I'm cutting it out right now. I think that will look better than the other heart. And I want it to kind of lay close to the flowers, so I'm just not putting any kind of Z or V shape under it. And then I'll put the banner on. So, so as I learned from the first one we did, I am going to add the glue and then lay the pop out onto the image. See, it'll go much easier that way. See, ta-da! Fun little, oh. Okay, so you won't have this problem if you let it dry beforehand. I lost that leaf because I didn't let it dry. Patience is a good thing. So I realized that I hadn't added the gemstones and I'm putting them on now. But I think this would be easier to put on before you start messing with the layering. So just keep in mind that the gemstones should be probably added before you start messing with the flowers and the layering. But it does add a lot of fun to the card. This card is just screaming for someone to write Happy Valentine's Day or the person's name on top of that image in the back there. So later on, although I did not do it in the video, I did write Happy Valentine's Day with a gold pen. I could have used my gold paint. Never thought of that at the time. I just grabbed a pen and I wrote the Happy Valentine's Day, which looked really cute. And I'll try to get a photograph of it